they started pulling away from me, and I stopped getting invited to events and girls' night outs. And then I would see it on Facebook, and I'm like, why wasn't I invited?
Today, we're going to talk about isolation. Now, isolation is a tactic that abusers use to control their victims. So today we're going to talk about what it looks like, what isolation looks like, how to combat it, and how to recover from it. So, babe, let's talk about some examples of isolation and what it looks like.
Well, for me, when I was going through it, he socially isolated me.
Right.
I had worked for a company for years, and I had the best group of friends, like 25 years. In fact, we called ourselves the Yaya Sisterhood.
They did a lot of drinking together.
We did a lot of drinking together, and I noticed after a while of going through this abuse, they started pulling away from me, and I stopped getting invited to events and girls' night outs. And then I would see it on Facebook, and I'm like, why wasn't I invited? And then I finally realized I had pulled away from them. I mean, I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I was tired of being depressed when I talked about it to them. I couldn't share any fun stories. I was either covering for my abuser, lying about it, or they were telling me things that I didn't want to hear. So I started self-isolating, which is another form of isolation, where I literally pulled away from everyone. And so it's not a good place to be when you're in an abusive situation and your support network is gone.
Right.
So, I mean, that's social. There's emotional isolation. There's dependency on the abuser. There's physical isolation, where they move you away from family and friends, and now you have no one. Any type of isolation is dangerous, it's scary, and it literally taxes your ability to make your own logical decisions.
Right. You know, the unusual thing for me was I was being isolated and I didn't even know it. I was in the middle of a smear campaign. She was telling everybody that I physically abused her. Can you imagine that, as a man having to go through that? I had no idea what was going on. I just realized that nobody was connecting with me anymore. My friends, a lot of my family were disconnecting themselves from me. So I was being isolated and I didn't even know it.
And it's a very hurtful experience, because when you need your family and friends most is when your narcissist or your abuser doesn't want them near you. They don't want anybody that can influence you one way or the other, because that means they're going to lose control of you.
Right.
So isolation is very manipulative, very toxic, very dangerous for the victim.
Right. What that looks like.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes it actually takes.
Because, like I said, I didn't even know I was going through it.
Well, exactly.
Right.
And when your friends start pulling away and you start realizing it, sometimes it does take actually seeing it for it to register with you. And you know what, this is what I'm going through. Yep. And even if you're out of it and you still feel disconnected, you still feel disconnected from your family and friends. I know I was, it took me a while to be courageous enough to actually make the phone calls to my yayas. And it was because I guess I was ashamed, and I thought too much time had passed. Too much time had gone by. I'm just going to suffer in silence, which is ridiculous, because you don't need to suffer in silence. Your family and friends, people that care about you, are just waiting for you to reach out. And
so what happened when you called your friends?
Well, it was like the first phone call. I mean, the minute I was courageous enough to make the phone call, they just grabbed hold of me and were so happy to hear from me. Right. And that's what family and friends do. We don't realize we pull away. But don't be afraid to go back, no matter how much time, please, no matter how much time it's been, pick up the phone, call somebody that cared about you and that you cared about. The connection that you feel by reuniting with someone will take that isolation fear away. And it's just little steps. I was so happy that I did that. I mean, they embraced me. We, went out drinking.
Yeah. Of course you did.
Now he's like, shit.
See, that's the true. Your true friends and family are waiting for you to reconnect. Yeah. They were trying for years and years and years to connect with you, and there was that disconnect.
And it could be at the hands of your abuser,
right? Your narcissist.
Yeah. Because they're famous for that. They are literally, they will make it so miserable for you to connect with someone. Or they could have started a smear campaign.
Yeah.
And that's why people pull away.
So before we go further, let's talk. So we had the different examples of what isolation is and what it looks like. So let's talk about how do we combat isolation if we're still in it?
Well, being still in it is difficult,
Right.
Because if you have been pulled away from people that care about you, making contact with them may be not as easy as it sounds.
Right.
But reaching out to even one trusted family or friend just to let them know what you're going through, you got to have an olive branch with somebody,
Right.
because if you don't make that move, they've already been pretty much cut out of your life. You're going to be the one that has to make that move. Now, if you're out of it and you're still struggling, pick up the phone, send them a text, connect on social media again. It's easier when you're out than when you're in it. So definitely connecting with family and friends, it's huge. If you're out and you connect with somebody that you thought was your friend and they don't reciprocate, don't let that discourage you, because you might get your feelings hurt. We both did.
Yeah.
We both reached out to people that we thought were our friends, and they weren't. And so you might go through some disappointment, but that's all part of healing and getting your self-esteem back. But don't let that stop you. Don't let that combat you. Don't let that stop you from trying to combat this. Right. I know how it feels to be isolated and alone and not have anybody in your corner.
Right.
And I just don't want that. I don't want that for anybody that follows us, that's part of our group. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I know you can get from where you are to where you want to be. You just have to know how to do it.
Exactly. So what A asked is, how did you guys handle the loneliness? And then she says, love and light. I love how she always even though she's a victim right now of isolation and she's dealing with a lot of other things, she still always signs off love and light.
That's hope right there. That is hope. And you know what? That's what it's all about, is having hope. And I was very lonely. I mean, I worked for a huge company, so I had people around me all the time, and I still felt so lonely because I couldn't be my true self. I really felt like when I left work and left people, I went home to like a dungeon. I mean, it didn't matter where I was. I felt alone. I felt alone in my car. I felt alone at home. And I struggled for a long time to actually start digging my way out of that darkness. Right. And journaling, let me tell you, journaling saved my life, because I didn't know how to get my thoughts out because I hadn't quite reached out to my support network. I wasn't brave enough yet. So I just started writing things down.
That was the biggest problem. When I left, I just blurted out, I want a divorce. And
most people do that. They threaten.
Yeah, and then, it went downhill from there. I mean, I showed up at my home one evening after work, and the whole house was empty.
And it was his house.
Everything had been moved out of it. Yeah. I bought it before we got married. It was my furniture. It was all my stuff. It was all gone from my house. And so I didn't follow my own. Well, I didn't know.
You didn't know back then.
I had no clue.
Those years ago.
I just thought if I'm
don't want that to happen
one rational person talking to another about, hey,
it's just not working.
Let's get a divorce. You think, okay, well, let's do that.
Yeah, you're miserable.
But when you're dealing with an abusive person,
it doesn't work that way.
That's not the way it ends for them. They want to ruin your life.
Thank you guys for tuning in.